presentation. Thanks very much.
Perfect. Well, firstly, thank you very much for having us. It's a great treat to be here indeed. I'm actually rather privileged in a sense, because this is actually my second time speaking to your wonderful organisation. I've also had the pleasure of meeting some of your members as well in the Middle East, where we delivered a presentation in Dubai a couple of years ago. So it's lovely to be back. It's an incredible depth of knowledge and experience within the IIMS. So we hugely appreciate our modest association with you guys and girls. Anyway, I'm here really today to talk about a little bit of the work that we are doing in trying to deliver our safe ship message around the world. We specialize in ultrasonic technologies primarily, and we aim to do our little bit to make the ships and the maritime world a little bit safer all over the world, and by doing things better and quicker than is possible. I'm mainly talking today about two of our core technology strands. That is the water ingress side of things, and then our work on the method to prevent fires, specifically revolving around the inspection of the onboard fixed fire systems. I would also say I'm not sure how easy it is to do it logistically, but if anybody has any questions at any point throughout the presentation, please feel free to jump in. Much rather, happy to take questions as we go through, or if it's easier logistically, I suppose we could wait till the end. But either works for me. So how do I change slides? So bear with us.
That's a more technical question.
Anyway, so sorry about that. So just to introduce a little bit about us, we are a UK manufacturer based in London, but with the factories up in the Midlands. Not a lot of manufacturing still going on in central London, but we are very much export focused. 89% of what we do is export, and we currently work across 120 countries around the world, with our two major markets being in the US and then Southeast Asia. We were founded in 1987 by an actual former Royal Naval submariner, who was our founder and former chairman, who then spent the latter part of his career working in the maritime industry in London Greek shipping companies, and it's from that expertise where basically our entire company is founded and has grown. So to give you a slight flavor for our company and what we do, we have a very, very heavy focus on research and innovation, and especially developing new technologies. So last year we had the great honor of also being awarded a Queen's Award for Enterprise, which is quite a prestigious award in the UK, and shows our very outward looking mentality. But we were also a few years ago named one of the great British innovators by Innovate UK, a government organisation here, and over the years we've won numerous awards for various new product innovations and activities we've done. And indeed we are very active in the UK, both with Maritime UK, the various departments of the Department for Transport in the government, and also with the IMO, where our CEO has actually delivered talks as well in the past on various areas of our expertise. So we try and be as dynamic a part of the shipping industry as we can, and we intend that to be a core part of our being as well for the future. In terms of our USA presence, I'm always in the US, tend to be bouncing back and forward at least every 6 to 8 weeks or so. And as a result, we have quite a large network of support available. So we have our what we call our ODA centers. We have local support for recalibrations, repairs, and to maintain that in-country service for all of our customer base throughout America. We have then a number of partners. So we do a lot of work out of Miami with the crew sector especially. So we have a dedicated partner down in Florida to manage that work. And then other partners supporting other different projects, including Danny Brown from a company called Hiller, which some of you may have heard of. And Larry Clay doing more of the land-based work. But this support network is a key part of what we do. We make equipment to last, and we always promise that throughout the lifetime of the equipment, no matter how long you've had it and what condition it's in, we guarantee to always support our equipment in the field with a full suite of recalibrations, repairs. We even always promise to buy back or aging units, so we can, if they're too old, we recycle them. If not, then we trade them in for the newer models, the newer technologies. And also every unit we provide comes with technical support and training available free of charge for the lifetime of the kit. And also, I mean, especially for the surveyors world, we also provide the ability to have a certified training system. So we can also provide certification saying that individuals are approved users and are fully equipped to operate the equipment. So to launch into the first of the technology I want to cover today, it's the water ingress, waterside integrity side of things. So we develop a piece of equipment called the Porter Scanner. Now, the Porter Scanner is an ultrasonic watertight integrity device. Now, I'm sure many of you will be familiar with these. They provide an ultrasonic method for identifying leak sites in a wide variety of critical infrastructure. These include hatch covers, watertight doors, cable transits, and many other applications besides. We've even done quite a lot of work with a number of navies on nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare seals, especially in destroyers and things like that. The Citadel, the core fighting components of the warship have to be 100% airtight in many applications, and we provide the equipment and the ability for the navies to deliver that testing themselves. As I said, I'm sure many of you will be familiar with all the regulations surrounding this and everything. But the core of this equipment, when we first developed it, we wanted to develop an alternative to the traditional methods of testing. Hose and chalk testing especially. Chalk testing especially has been an industry favorite and continues to be so in some parts of the world. But as I said, I don't want to be at risk of explaining the same things with everything that you guys already know. But we've done a lot of research in this area as well. And whilst chalk testing can offer good indication of where seals are touching and stuff, it is not hugely accurate, and it also does not give any indication of compression. And obviously, compression is the key part you need in order to get that true watertight seal that's going to protect these vessels at sea. Hose testing as well. It is a method, but very dependent on the quality of the guys using it, and also incredibly time-consuming, messy, and not quite as accurate. So it was in developing this ultrasonic method, we wanted it to develop a unit that allowed the users to pinpoint the exact location, severity of any leak site quickly, cleanly, and with a much higher degree of precision, to ensure that the vessel, the cargo, and the crew on board are truly being kept safe and not at risk of major water ingress. So This, so to give you a flavor of how we typically work with this, we very recently completed a project with the Indian Navy, for example. Now, a lot of this work replicated work that we've been doing for many, many years with the Royal Navy, who identified that they had an issue with the structural integrity of the vessels, especially when it came to areas like the cable transits. Cable transits, obviously, the passive seal, so there's no pressure on one side of the other, and also it is not practical to either chalk or hose test. So it was needed. They needed it to maintain these accuracy levels. So the Royal Navy, who've been using the Porter scanner for many, many years to do this, use it to go around the entire vessels on a regular basis, identify the key weaknesses within their bulkheads, within the penetrations through these bulkheads, the critical watertight doors, and the idea being that these key seals will hold up in the event that they are going to be required. The Royal Navy has had some astonishing examples where these have both held and failed, and we try to do our bit to help them do this. The Porter scanner especially was particularly powerful for them because we have got a unit which is capable of identifying a leak site as small as 0.06 millimeters. It is a very flexible unit, so you do not have to go down to that granular level of detail, but this precision allows you to use it as both a weathertight, a watertight, and an airtight method of identifying leaks, which, as I alluded to earlier with the NBC seals as well, becomes a critical element. So just to explain a little bit more about how the equipment actually functions, there are two primary components to this device. If you see in the bottom left of this picture, you'll see what we call the generator. Now this emits a very specific, very powerful ultrasonic frequency, and this unit is placed. If we take the example of a bulk carrier hatch cover, for example, an application I'm sure will be very familiar to most of you there. The generator is placed inside the hold, and this will fill the hold and cover the top of the hatch cover with the strong ultrasonic signal that we are looking for. The basic way that this generator is also then fitted with a magnet that also allows it to be fitted inside the hatch coaming to save the trouble of having to climb all the way down and onto the tank top to place the generator there, and also for quick, getting the generator in and out nice and quickly. These generators have a range of about 100 meters, so plenty larger than anything you'll ever find in the bulk carrier world, and it's an area of constant evolution for us. But then the way it works, once the generator is placed, the surveyor or whoever is doing the testing will walk around the outside of the hatch and make sure that you have strong signals at all sides. So you can guarantee that there's enough signal hitting the inside of the seal to get a reliable test. The hatch is then sealed, and then using this other component, you can see here with the display, you can then walk around the outside of the hatch cover, and as you see in image 3 here, as you come across areas of leaking, the receiver unit will be able to identify that, and very quickly you will be able to identify exactly the exact location and severity of any leak you have. The unit has a number of different functions. So we also have the gain function built into the unit. So if at any point when you're doing your checks whilst the hatch is open, if you're not getting strong enough signals, you can increase the gain, and that is increasing the sensitivity of the unit to detect more signals to allow you to continue to work. And the unit also comes with a direct linear scale, which is just a straightforward digital representation. So bigger the number, bigger the problem. But we also have the decibel scale, which is often the preferred method for the maritime industry. This equipment is ABS and RENA approved, well, it is not actually. We will be launching this year, but we are also soon to be launching our next evolution of the Porter scanner, which is very exciting. And in this, one of the key innovations we have in this was a part of the work we did with the Royal Navy again, where they were requesting a method to have a direct relationship between the ultrasonic signals we are receiving and the size of that leak site. So we have come up with a proven relationship now between being able to quantify leak size from ultrasound. And we are the first in the world who have been able to do that. The device will also be in a tablet form, allowing the users to take pictures of the application being tested, mark up on the display where issues are being located, and then come up with a cumulative area leak site for that application. From there, we can also calculate different flow rates through each application, as can be expected depending on the application. So, for example, a watertight door in a pontoon leg in an offshore oil and gas rig, constantly underwater, it would be expected to have a higher pressure of water on it than a weather-tight hatch above deck on an aircraft carrier or something. So this will be launching towards the middle of 2020, yeah, we're greatly looking forward to it. It should be a real step change in terms of being able to truly quantify the issues that are being experienced in this area. Anyway, I will, unless anybody's got any questions, I will press on. Marvelous. So the second major area we wanted to cover today surrounds the fire safety of the vessels aboard. As I said, the two most common methods of vessel loss have always been major water ingress and fire safety. And so these are the two areas that we focus a lot of our technologies on addressing. So as many of you will be aware, especially in the maritime side, on board there are very large CO2 systems, especially that are regularly installed as one of the primary weapons in combating major fire incidents on board. Nowadays, the more Novex systems are becoming popular, but critically, these CO2 tanks especially are stored under a very high pressure, and leaking is a regular and endemic issue throughout the industry. Traditional method, and this is actually where our chairman started the entire company. He was working for a shipping company, and it started from a frustration of the amounts that were being spent on servicing, having to manually, and the time of having to manually weigh each of these tanks in order to verify content. And then, of course, the pressures when so many were found to be empty, having to replace them in quick time. So this is actually the foundation of a lot of our company, really, and where we started. So in the traditional method, when you have your large bank of CO2 tanks, it was required that you dismantle dismantle the system, get the CO2 cylinders, which are incredibly heavy things. If you haven't never budged them around, there's 45 kg of agent in it, and they're at least 90 kilos just to shift around. So it's a lot of weight to be moving. Put it on a scale, and from there you can verify the weight of agent in the tank, and thus determine whether the cylinder is empty or full. We came up with a method over 30 years ago of identifying the liquid level in these tanks, which allows the cylinders to remain exactly where they are. They do not need to move. And once you've identified the liquid level, it is a simple mathematical equation in order to convert that from liquid to weight. We comply with all regulations in this regard. The SOLAS, and again, this equipment is certified by the Classification Society approval from both RENA and ABS. In the maritime sector, we really have two semi-distinct customer groups who utilize this equipment. Firstly, we have our marine servicing companies, that companies like Servitech and so on, who are using this equipment in order to carry out the annual maintenance. But secondly, and this is where the IMO codes come in a bit, there is actually an IMO SOLAS code which specifies, as I said here, that means shall be provided by the crew for the crew to check the quantity of fire extinguishing medium in the containers on board. Now, in our experience, this is an often overlooked regulation and not particularly well policed, but the essence of it says that the crew have to have the ability to inspect the CO2 cylinders on board safely. Now, with the vessel at sea, that and they without suitable training, the crew cannot be expected to weigh these tanks, and that is where we come in. So we have many fleets around the world who use our equipment as part of their own safety checks to carry out inspections carried out by the crew to make sure that the CO2 systems are working properly and that the agent is there when they need it. As I said, 5% loss of content or 10% loss of pressure is deemed that's then when the cylinders need to come out, be refilled, and then get the system back up to full fighting strength. Interestingly, this is again where our technologies can often come hand in hand, but an area which is looked at a lot, especially in the more land-based fire protection scenarios, there they spend as much attention looking at the integrity of the room as they do on the agent itself. So when agent is deployed into a room, if we use an engine room as an example, when that system is dumped, if the agent is required to be contained within that space for a period of time in order to fully extinguish the fire. Now, what I mean by room integrity is that there is not the ability for agent to escape from this room, thus it will not then be effective. And so, for typical examples, doors being left open and things of this nature. Whereas this is where the portal scanner technology that I mentioned earlier can also assist in these regards to identify the major leak areas in the engine room to ensure that the rooms are going to contain the CO2 and fully extinguish the fire in the event of it occurring. As I said, this equipment is used truly throughout the industry. Most major servicing companies around the world, the Royal Navy, the US Navy has used these in the past, and the US Coast Guard is soon to be hopefully considering this again. Canadian Navy, Wilhelmsen, Servitech, FML, Wallam, many different companies throughout the industry. Now, in terms of how this equipment actually works, all the users does is they place a sensor towards the top of the cylinder where they know they are above the liquid level. So in the top third of the tank, basically. All of our units nowadays have auto cal features. So this means that the user engages one button and the unit will set itself up. There is no manual calibration. There is no manual setup. Simply press one button and the unit will register, okay, this is a gas reading. And from there, the user simply moves the sensor down the cylinder, down the tank. And then, as you see in the bottom left-hand display here, there's this reading on the left where it says about 9,000, the bar graph is full. That is a typical gas reading. And then as soon as you hit the liquid, you will see the image on the right when the bar graphs will disappear and you'll be getting much smaller numbers. That is then indicating you are in liquid. So you simply, by then moving the sensor up and down in much smaller steps, you can identify accurate to 1.5 millimeters, the exact liquid level. And that entire process from arriving at the cylinder to being able to calculate the agent weight will take about 30 seconds, which is for one man. So you can rattle through a very large system incredibly quickly, and really get away from the necessity to weigh, and well, in our experience, the propensity to actually avoid doing the work thoroughly, due to the unfortunate time pressures of vessels in port and all this sort of thing, where you cannot two men cannot test the full system in the sort of times that these vessels are turning around in typically. So this is a slightly thinly veiled example of a recent fleet that we have been working with. Again, working with our partners in Miami. There was a cruise line who were looking to reinforce that their safety practices with regards to their onboard fire systems. We were focusing again here on the CO2 systems and one very small NOVEX system on each of the vessels, and we were putting in place their ability to carry out a monthly interval checks carried out by the crew to identify any interim issues in between certifications. So between annual certification, they were doing their own methods. We thankfully won this contract, and we have now supplied so far 25 fleets, with several more to come. And this is a very typical example of the sort of work that we are doing with the shipping industry. Anyway, so I'm going to wrap up so we can have a bit of extra time for questions, so I can answer exactly what it is you're looking for. But to give you another idea of what we do, we actually have 6 major technologies that we operate with. And within these, we have a wide variety of different sub-products and everything. But the liquid level side is the core of what we do. So I've mentioned already the equipment designed for checking the fire systems. But we also have tools for measuring mass storage tanks, spheres, and all sorts of other things. We then have our leak range. As I mentioned, that's the Porter scanner. Our thickness gauging for check a variety of units here for normal stuff, corrosion testing, hull plates, deck plates, things like this. Our flow range for, again, non-invasive methods of checking flows through pipes. So all sorts of different mediums here, so waters, heavy oils, any major liquids really. Acoustic, where we do make equipment for bearing checkers. So many people are familiar with vibration units for checking the integrity of bearings. So in pumps, gearboxes, machinery, these sorts of things. Whereas acoustic is capable of identifying issues long before they become a vibration problem. Vibration is when issues have already occurred. Using acoustics, you can pick up the abrasion and the scraping of smaller issues before they exacerbate into full vibrations and major problems. So we do a lot of that with the shipping industry to look after, as I said, pumps, bearings, gearboxes, these sorts of things. And then finally, our pressure range, where we are the only company in the world who have identified a non-invasive method of checking pressure. So by that I mean we can put a sensor on the outside of the tank, and we can tell you the pressure on the inside, which is yes, another first in the world for us. So we're quite proud of that. Anyway, I'm going to finish there, I think. And I hope it was. Well, as I said, I would love to hear your thoughts and answer any specific questions we've got. But I would also, on this juncture, like to just on a personal note, say that marine surveyors have always been a huge part of our evolution as a company. We have worked with many. The Porter Scanner 2 indeed was, we had a marine surveyor was a key part of the development team for that, and yes, they've continued to push us, make sure we keep improving, keep us honest, and indeed, and we're very privileged to be able to provide a lot of the equipment in order to allow you guys to do what you do. So we hugely appreciate being here. And I said, I hope it's of some interest, and thank you all very much for allowing us to be here.
George, it's Mike in the room. I hope you can hear me.
I can indeed.
Fantastic. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much. If people want to ask questions, I'm going to run around with a microphone here so that everyone can hear what's going on. So who has questions for George? Okay, hang on. Hang on. Just asking. How are you?
Just the calibration protocols and the certification for the instruments, are they required to be sent back to you annually or anything like that?
Yes. All of our equipment really is classified under international standards as safety equipment. Now, all safety equipment is required to be calibrated annually, and so as such, we comply with those standards, and we always recommend it is annually calibrated. Of course, it is completely at your discretion, and as I mentioned, we do have service stations in the US as well. But every unit we provide comes with what we call a function test in the instructions, and as long as that function test continues to pass, the unit is fit for purpose and can be used knowing it is working well. But again, under the letter of the law on the certification side, we must recommend annual calibration.
You provide the certification for that, because you're always asked that. Perfect.
Sorry, could you say that again, please?
I said, yeah, and you provide the certificate for that for the annual, because you're always asked that, so that's perfect.
Yes, we provide all of that.
Okay, another question coming.
Again, on the certification, is that going back to the UK, or can it go to some of the US service operations?
No, it's completely up to you. But again, you can definitely go back to the US. There's no need for it to go back to UK.
So 3 places in the US, George?
Yes, we have 3 major partners in the US. But the major service station for this stuff is in Miami, just outside Miami in Florida. So that'll be where the work is actually carried out.
Okay. The cost of the units, roughly, please. Ballpark.
About $3,000 ish. Bit less.
Ish. I see the exchange rate, George, has rocketed since in the last couple of weeks against the dollar.
Right, yes.
I don't quite know what's caused it.
I always pray for a weak pound.
Yeah. Any other points or questions? I think we're done, George.
Well, I mean, may I ask one from me? I mean, I'd love to get the impression from the room on the thoughts on ultrasonic, especially on the hatch cover side. Like, is it considered a positive, an essential, unnecessary? What's your the feeling?
Who thinks it's essential? Yeah, a handful. Any specific comments back to George? Hang on a second, George.
Thank you.
I have a question.
So,
please.
Just real quick.
Go on, real quick.
Just real quick. So, at, $3,000 ish. What's the business model? I mean, how do you price that, and then how long before you get a payback on that?
So our expertise is manufacturing equipment. So as I said, it's $2,800 £1,000 is the exact price on it. And then typically our customers will be charging, again, I don't, it varies. My understanding is it's at least $150 to $200 per hatch cover. So if one is testing, a couple of Panamaxes every year, then the unit will have almost paid itself off in that way. Again, the specific numbers we go a lot of anecdotal evidence, but that is typically how we do it. Does that make sense?
Unsure in the room, I think, George. Unsure. He's sort of nodding his head the wrong way.
Okay. What am I low on my numbers?
Too low per hatch cover? Yeah. I guess the simple answer, George, is with all surveying, is it's what you can get away with, isn't it? I mean, nobody has a set charge, and that's part of the challenge in this market, actually. We've got another question coming. Hang on.
So my question's in regards to the fire equipment. Is that the same price? I mean, because I guess our business model is we're looking at yachts and charter and personal pleasure. So being able to inspect a fire suppression system, on that for someone that's maybe chartering their guests might be more comforting. So kind of looking at that business model too. Could you speak to that?
Yes. So on that side of things, we actually have a slightly larger range of units. So we have, if you're only testing what we would refer to as small and simple things, which CO2 cylinders is exactly that, then we have units as low as $1,500. But again, ranging up to about $4,000 depending on what is being tested. Again, it is application specific. So I'd be delighted to have a more specific chat on that as well, if you'd like to work out what would be suitable.
Thanks, George. We had a question online, actually. Somebody was trying to come online and ask a question. Who was that?
It's the same question that was just asked. What's the price of the porter level? And is it effective on the small automatic systems you find in small craft?
So is it as in the smaller systems one's likely to find in small engine bays and things like the Fireboy systems, things like that?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, we're very familiar with those tanks, and small is good for us.
And a price to work with that specific size, what would that equipment cost?
So I probably wouldn't go for our entry level models on those, because those guys tend to use a lot more of the Novec and the FM type agents. So for that, I'd probably recommend one of our mid range units, what we call the Porter Marine, which is about $2,400.
Sharp intake of breath. Okay, hang on, George. We have another question in the room for you.
Please.
I was just wondering, your CO2 unit, the one that measures the CO2, can it also identify powder in hand portable extinguishers and or other cylinder type extinguishers?
So powder is an interesting one that has eluded us for many years. We can function on some, but it's the same with foam. We can work on some, but not all. And because we just cannot guarantee it, we never market it as such, and we keep that as very specific. But again, this equipment really is designed as a liquid level indicator as opposed to a solid level indicator or something. So I wouldn't recommend it as a core application.
Okay. Any more questions? Online delegates, any questions? Those in the room, any more? George, have you got some feedback that you're happy with?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear that it seems that hose and chalk still reign supreme. I might be right on that.
Is he right on that? Yeah, there's a lot of nodding in the room going on.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's yes,
Old habits die hard, hey, you know.
Old habits always do die hard, and you know, as I said, I imagine that with the expertise in the room, if anybody could do a chalk and a hose test well, it's those people. But again, we've gone over this time and time again, and I would always say that ultrasound is more accurate, it is more safer, and you can identify problems that you never knew were there using traditional means. So whilst I appreciate it is not necessarily for everybody there, all I would ask is that have a look at it and consider it before writing it off too quickly.
Can I just make a point about technology generally, actually, George? I think we see, or I certainly see now, so much going on in the whole surveying world. And I do worry that sometimes people get a piece of kit and they don't properly, or they're not properly trained. And I think that's quite dangerous. So, I mean, we looked at thermal imaging cameras, which, you know, a lot of you guys will know and some of you will use, but they're really quite complicated and they show things, but it's the interpretation of what they're showing sometimes I think maybe the surveyor struggles with.
I honestly could not agree with that more. I mean, we find both ends of the coin on this one. I mean, we even get customers who we know by our equipment just to get contracts, and then they're either not using the equipment properly, or you know they don't even bother. You know, as long as they can say they have it and they have a certificate, then they will get a contract at the back of it, which is obviously an incredibly uncomfortable position for us to be in. But you know, you mentioned on the training side, this is why we have such a large emphasis on our free training. And as I say, every new user who gets a unit, we always recommend, you know, give us half an hour with you on the phone with the kit and a sample piece, and we will walk you through how it works. And from there, we always iron out 95% of all the issues you're ever likely to come across. But no, the training element, you are absolutely spot on, is a fundamental part of the jigsaw for what we do, because you can have the fanciest kit going, but you know, as I have to experience on a very regular basis with my mother, despite the fact she's got her nice new iPhone, working it continues to elude her, and yeah, her creative ways of breaking it have never failed to amaze me.
Yeah, I suppose to answer the question that came from the room earlier about what you can charge and what's the business model, I guess if you become a real specialist with some of this kit in a particular area, then you get known as a specialist and you can maybe charge accordingly. I don't know, is that a fair point?
It is, yeah. I mean, we've got a few customers we worked with down in the Caribbean, for example, for many years, and you know, we come across guys, you know, at the P&I clubs and everything here, and you know, they know that if they want, you know, good testing done on hatches in the Caribbean, they go to these guys, you know, because they've been using this kit for so long, and they just build up a reputation for it. And you know, I do think there is the P&I clubs and you know, the Lloyd's of Londons and stuff are catching up with this, and it's, you know, some of them are a bit further behind than others, but you know, people who a lot of the guys we know in they ultrasound is, they appreciate it's just the better way of doing things. So I think there is a movement there as well.
Yeah. Any final points before we let George go? James, anything from you? So